I'm Dave Boucher with the Tennessean. This is Jamie Satterfield with the Knoxville News Sentinel. We both work for the USA Today Network in Tennessee. We both just witnessed the first execution in Tennessee since 2009. Billy Ray Irick was pronounced dead at 7:48 p.m. on Thursday, August 9th. The execution took roughly 20 minutes. A lot of legal action leading up to it, a lot of questions coming out of it. Jamie, what are some of your just immediate takeaways from today?
You know, the thing I kept thinking about as I was watching Billy Ray Irick die was how long it took Paula Dyer to die. And I was thinking about her family and what they must have been feeling. I could see her brother leaning up and watching, biting his nail, looking really nervous. So that was what I kept thinking about, was his death compared to hers.
We were in a different room from the Dyer family. We were sitting in a room with Gene Shiles. He's the attorney for Billy Ray Irick. We were roughly 10 feet away from Billy Ray Irick. He was laying down on a gurney. His right arm was sort of toward us. About an hour before that, we were in a waiting room, and Gene Shiles, his attorney, told me this, quote, "I never thought for one moment that it would ever come to this. I never did. I thought somebody would actually look at the facts. I was wrong." He's talking about this idea that Billy Ray Irick's severe mental illness was never given a fair shake in court. Now, the governor and other courts dispute that, but the Irick camp, his attorney and advocates, would argue that it was never actually considered. Jamie, looking specifically at the execution itself, and I know you talked about thinking about Paula, but what about just the logistics of the execution stood out to you?
Well, you know, there was these moments of waiting, especially once we got into the room before they lifted the curtains, and I was struck by how silent everybody was. And then when they opened the curtains and I saw him laying there, it's been many years since I've seen Billy Ray Irick, and I was struck by how he was laying, looking straight up. He seemed so calm. And then when he was asked his last words, I wasn't sure if he was going to say anything, but he did. And our sheriff, Knox County Sheriff Jimmy J.J. Jones, he was in the room with us. He stood up the entire time, and he kind of paced back and forth. He was really nervous. He didn't want to be there, but what he said was, "I'm here first and foremost for the victim, Paula Dyer, and for the citizens of Knox County, the same citizens that convicted him and sentenced him to death." And one thing that Sheriff Jones said about Billy Ray Irick's last words were, "I really wanted to hear some more from him. You're always looking for that explanation."
Irick was laying on a gurney. He had what looked like almost like seatbelts strapped over his chest and his waist. He had leather straps that were binding his wrist and what looked like some sort of cloth or some material tape kind of covering his hands. So the thing that you could see move was a little bit of his face and his chest and his stomach. He had a little bit of a bigger stomach, so you could see it moving up and down. Jamie, the thing that I kept looking at during the execution was that he had a beard and a mustache, and he was snoring. And when he snored, you could see the hair in his mustache move up. And so he would snore in this rhythmic, loud snoring for a few minutes, and you could see the hair move up and move up. And at times he would cough or make some other sound out of his throat, and eventually that started to go down. And so I would look for the movement in his mustache, and slowly that stopped, and the movement in his chest stopped. What do you think this means, Jamie, for the people of Knox County and for a community where, like you said, in 1985, Irick raped and murdered a 7-year-old girl?
Well, I think, people talk about closure. I don't know that this family will ever have closure. I think for our community, particularly in East Tennessee, we're a law and order kind of place. And so I think that for most people, that they will be able to see that a death sentence that was handed down 30-something years ago by a Knox County jury is finally being carried out. So I think that I'm sure that people are gathering around this family in their prayers, and so it is a bit of closing a chapter on this particular case. But I'm sure for this family that the nightmare never ends.
This definitely doesn't close the chapter on death penalty questions in Tennessee and across the country. We've already received a statement from one of Billy Ray Irick's attorneys pointing to the time that it took for him to die, and also some of the sneezing or snoring and coughing that we heard as a sign that maybe the drugs didn't work as intended and that he felt immense pain. Again, there were questions about whether the first drug in the 3-drug cocktail would actually render him unconscious and unable to feel pain. It's hard for us to say. I think Jamie and I would both agree that it's really hard to say if he was feeling pain. He wasn't writhing, he wasn't screaming, but again, there were experts that testified in a court hearing in July in Davidson County who said that the snoring and the coughing could be a sign that he's feeling pain. There are 2 more executions scheduled in Tennessee this year, one in October, one in December. There will absolutely be ongoing legal challenges. There's going to be an autopsy of Mr. Irick's body. There are going to be experts who want to analyze that autopsy to see if they can find evidence of torture. We heard from the Supreme Court today, hours before he died, a justice in a dissent, Justice Sonia Sotomayor, saying that this is akin to barbarism. So, like you're talking about, Jimmy, there's potentially no closure for a family. Maybe there is. Absolutely no closure for questions about the death penalty in Tennessee and across the country.